Sometimes life ain't fair. A guy goes into the drugstore and asks the pharmacist for something to cure hiccups. Pharmacist leans forward, reaches across the counter, and just slaps the guy upside the head. "What did you do that for?" the guy asks. Pharmacist says, "You're not hiccuping anymore." "That's right." "Huh? That's the cure." Guy says, "I don't have the hiccups. It's my wife. She's out in the car." A friend of mine likes to say, if the world didn't suck, we'd all fall off. And I think he's right. This planet is a troubled place where tough times visit us all. But in the midst of this, I'm fascinated by people whose lives are marked by contagious, outrageous joy. Joy that doesn't make much sense. I've heard it in the laughter of inmates who have found that God loves and forgives them. I've seen it at the old folks' home I visit and in the smile of a friend with bone cancer. I've watched the peace on the faces of a resilient young couple with Job-like symptoms who are persevering amidst all kinds of tragedy. I've seen them laugh. It's a laughter that circumstances cannot limit. You have people like that in your life, I suspect, don't you? But let me ask you something. If you had to pick out just one characteristic that lies at the heart of a healthy laugh, what would you say? Medication? Think about it. When I was 10, two famous people visited our home. The first was an internationally recognized speaker who was performing nearby. I'm not going to give you his name, but during a roast beef dinner in our house, he groused for a miserable hour about the squeaky bed hotel they had placed him in, how bad the weather was, the fact that his watch had stopped, and he picked at his roast like someone had pulled it from the compost. My wife wasn't alive at the time, or certainly wasn't my wife, but my mother was less than impressed. Thankfully, someone else showed up a few months later. In fact, she stayed the weekend in our home. I was asked to abdicate my room so this skilled surgeon would have a place to stay. I wasn't pleased about this because I was going to miss my styrofoam bed. I had no idea that a movie was being made about her life, and her books were selling briskly. But Dr. Helen Roseveare gratefully gobbled a meager ham sandwich at our table and thanked me repeatedly for her humble accommodations. A 10-year-old kid rarely attends church willingly, but her story so captivated me that I skipped playing football with my friends to hear her speak. Raped twice during the Simba uprising in Africa's Congo, Dr. Roseveare had survived unspeakable horror, yet her words and attitude brought laughter to our home. What she showed me is the key to learning to laugh again: simple gratitude. It's a discipline that should daily replace our desire to grouse and whine. Some of us live in wine country, don't we? Thankful people would rather accept than analyze. They'd rather compliment than criticize. Helen Keller thanked God for her handicaps. Through them, she wrote, "I have found myself, my work, and my God." One of my favorite chapters in the Bible is Psalm 100. It was written as a song of thanksgiving. It says, "Shout with joy to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come before Him, singing with joy. Acknowledge that the Lord is God. He made us. We are His. We are His people, the sheep of His pasture. Enter His gates with thanksgiving. Go into His courts with praise. Give thanks to Him and praise His name. For the Lord is good. His unfailing love continues forever, and His faithfulness continues to each generation." Such an attitude can change us today and bring joy to life. Gratitude is money we can print for ourselves and spend without fear of going bankrupt. Like magic, Thanksgiving turns a ham sandwich into an extravagant feast, a Timex into a Rolex, and a small boy into a lifelong fan. When I got my room back from Dr. Roseveare, two gifts sat atop my pillow: a kind note that I kept for years, wish I still had it, and $2, a veritable fortune for a 10-year-old kid.